What's up, guys? It's Rory. It's another late night session. I am here because, well, I just am hanging out. I'm trying to chill. So tonight I've been really thinking about this whole thing of the spiritual ego and and what the whole spiritual ego deal is these days because it's off the hook. It's like over the top. I have been witnessing it and seeing how just absolutely insane it seriously is. I can't get over it. And so what the spiritual ego is this, right? It's like I'm going to do a whole breakdown. Okay, so the beginning we are born. Okay? It's like the Bible or something. The beginning we are born, and when we're born, we're programmed from what ages 1 through 7, right? We're programmed from our parents, the society, all the different things, especially school, but all the different things that teach us how to be a human being. Okay, so you're programmed like a normal human being. You get to a certain point in your life. I don't know how old you are. Gosh, for me, it was like I was in like college, so it was way later on. But you get to a point where you're essentially like seeing that the way that you've been programmed isn't working anymore, you know? And so you go from being someone that is a normal program human being working in society, and that's really all you do is you work. And then you realize this isn't working, there's got to be more. You start to fall just like naturally into a path of spirituality, okay? And when you fall into this spiritual path, you start to see like sneakily that, oh my gosh, I have really figured out something. Oh wow, this is more than the average. I think that I actually might know something. And so then all of a sudden, boom, instantly you stick yourself into another box that is thinking you're better than the way you were before, which means you're better than all these other people that are living this life you used to live. So boom, there's the birth of the spiritual ego right there. God, it's a potent thing. And so from there, it's like you learn all this stuff because the knowledge of the spiritual path becomes something so important because you really know something. You follow this knowledge, you read book after book, listen to all these podcasts, and I did to some extent. I mean, we all do, right? And it's just like you get to a point where your spiritual ego becomes so potent that it's like you could almost mistake yourself for God. Like, I mean that in a joke way. It's like, yeah, you're a part of God. There's no doubt about that. But you're not God. Go sit down. Pop that little head of yours. And I'm not saying that in a shameful way. I mean that in a way of like, just see the reality of your placement in this universe. Because, goodness gracious, it just becomes over the top. I see all these people now, okay? I've been in this medicine community for quite a long time. You know, I work for Sacred Earth Sanctuary, which is a psilocybin church. I'm the associate minister of this church. I've worked with plant medicine for quite a long time. And the thing that I've really realized, though, is I watch all these other people working with plant medicine. Okay, ayahuasca, obviously, of course, it's the top of the chain. Everybody's doing it. Then you get into psilocybin, then combo. Bufo is huge now. That's a big, big thing. Ketamine, kind of, but that's not plant medicine. That's synthetic. So I don't really fall in alignment with that, but that's a different story. But anyway, I'm going to step back and just say that all of these things are starting to fall directly into a mainstream narrative. And so when it falls into a mainstream narrative, you know what happens? This just becomes a thing that you do on the regular out of recreational, experiential purposes. I don't even know if that made sense. Essentially, you do it recreationally in order to have an extensive amount of experiences that you believe impacts you and makes you somewhat superior to other beings that don't have these experiences. It's a natural course. It has to happen. Okay? So I'm not saying it's bad, but what I'm saying is it's a thing that so many people are blinded to. Goodness, it's like you don't even realize that you're just collecting these experiences in order to put them in your little bag of I'm really cool and continue on with your life so that you can brag it to other people. I'm sorry, I don't care you've done ayahuasca 100 times. Are you a good person? That's what I want to know. Because if you're not a good person and you're sitting there doing ayahuasca all the time, then all you're doing is saying, God talked to me and said this. And what you're not doing is integrating and becoming better. That's why I do shadow work. That's why I do integration. Because let me tell you, the most important thing in your life is to heal the things that have programmed you to be the way you are. Not all those things are bad, but a lot of them need to be brought into conscious awareness so you can know who you are and why you are the way you are, so then you can transform yourself into whatever you want to be. Okay? So it's like, come on. Stop collecting experiences. It's brutal. It's harsh. I'm sorry. It's true. Step back. Fall in love with the things those experiences are telling you to look at. Because you got to integrate those ceremonies. And if you don't, it just becomes one prolonged ceremony you don't even realize because you're just hopping around. Plant medicine's great, but the truth is, you don't need it to heal. Yes, it speeds it up. Yes, it shoves it down your throat because maybe you're not consciously aware to be able to see it without it. But damn, it can keep you right where you are too if you're so caught up in it that you don't realize that that's not healing you, you're healing you. And so we got this spiritual ego that's like, I do all of these things all the time. I'm sorry, I went on a tangent. I do all these things all the time. And you think you're better. Then you get to the point, I'm almost showing you it here now. This is the next step in the spiritual ego that has become something this is right where we're at, actually, with spirituality, is this new pregnancy of what is taking place. And I'm almost representing it perfectly. What I'm saying is that you get to the point where there's a spiritual ego, okay? You think you're better than people. Then you get to the next point. That is where you have a spiritual ego of the spiritual ego. And it becomes a paradox after this. But what I'm saying is you see it as the spiritual ego is annoying. So now you're the next formed identity of the spiritual ego blasting the previous spiritual ego, and you think you're better than that. This is the paradoxical creation right here, where it's like no further can you go until you let it all go. You just keep getting caught up in the I think I'm better than the one before me type of game. Whenever you identify with the actor, you will always stay where you are. And so once you see what you're doing, what you're getting caught up in, it becomes a reoccurring cycle in your awareness. You start to see that, and all of a sudden you change your action. What happens then? You change your identity, you change everything about your life. It becomes so profound. It's amazing. I love it. And it's just like, oh my gosh, you see these things that you don't normally see. It's profound. You start seeing the paradox of where we're caught up as human beings, of always trying to be someone. And I think it's as simple as that. Ram Dass says that so good. He says, we're trying to become somebody. Then he has the movie, the film. I've seen it a few times. I love it. It's so good. And it's becoming nobody. Because it's not about becoming somebody, it's about becoming nobody. Where you just like are being a human, you know? And that's so good. It's so beautiful. It's like, wow, you're just existing as a human being because that's why we're here. So that's where it's like, that's true spirituality. And you got to break through these spiritual egos to get there, because you have to become so consciously aware that you catch yourself being caught up in these things. You're a normal human. You become spiritually egotistical because you think you really know it, because now you're starting on a spiritual path. Eventually you get to such a point where you become so observationally awareness full. That made no sense. You become so aware through observation that you start to see you're just catching yourself up again. And then you start hating on your next spiritual ego. And it's like, oh, I hate that spiritual ego of all the people being spiritual ego. And no, it makes no sense because I butcher the saying every time I say it. It's just a roundabout way of getting back to yourself. Let's say this. Here's an analogy. I'm not good at analogies, but I'm going to try it because it popped in my head. And it's, you're in high school and you're a female. I'm just going to play it this way because this is what pops in my head. And you are dating the bad boy and you break up. You know what you do usually? You go back to the same guy because you get in this cycle, or not necessarily the same guy, I'm sorry, but you go back to the same type of person again, and oh, I'm dating a bad boy again, and then they don't treat you right, and then they leave you, and then you one day go back to the bad boy again, and then boom, you're stuck in a cycle. And this is what I mean about spiritual ego. You get stuck in a cycle that is just like non-stop forever. Because it's not supposed to be about blasting another individual. It's supposed to be about seeing them right where they are. And once you get to that point, the spiritual egos go right out the window. To an extent, the ego always exists. But to the extent where it's something you watch because you have to dance in a role. Maybe I'm not right about this, but the way I've always perceived it to myself is the ego is a beautiful tool, not a master. It is a thing that is the physical version of you, right? So it's like, my ego is Rory as this being. I can't get rid of it. I won't exist. I have to play an actor to be able to exist, okay? I know I'm God. I know I'm part of God, and I'm not God. I'm part of God. I am a representation of it manifests as me, which is identified as Rory through my parents. I know that. But I don't believe I'm Rory. That's why my YouTube channel is the Spirit of Rory, because it's not Rory actually here. I'm not identified as him. I'm just the Spirit of Rory that's manifest into the physical version that was named a vibrational word chant thing from my parents that you could say is Rory. That probably didn't make sense, but some people it'll be words, some people it'll make sense. Anyway, it becomes mind-blowing. This whole thing's so deep, I gotta stay on track, but I say these things because it brings up the illusion that goes so deep that we don't see, and I'll get into that as we go through this, because it's deep. Anyway, the spiritual ego is the first part of getting caught up in a spiritual identity. It brings you down this path of really becoming aware of yourself because you see through the facade of the spiritual identity, which really doesn't benefit you at all. It actually keeps you right where you are. You just went from being at one cool kid's table to another cool kid's table. So eventually you realize you could sit on the toilet eating your lunch, and it doesn't matter if you're at the cool kid's table or on the toilet. You're just here doing the thing. So you know what? None of it matters except it all does too. I love that saying. But you have to go through every phase. This is how I'm going to end it, okay? The spiritual ego is the thing I've been talking about. And as much as it's something to be aware of, it's a thing that you have to go through in order to understand it. I'm not going to tell you things right now through these videos that will allow for you to bypass any experience that you need to have in order to get to the place you want to be. It will all happen naturally. No matter what I tell you, no matter how much it resonates with you, you still have to go through your own experiences in order to get to where you need to be. That will teach you. And that is something no one can take from you, no one can give you except for yourself and except for spirit, because it's all aligned to bring you home. The more you look at this like school, the more the spiritual ego is just another section, another chapter in this life, and then all the other chapters just become chapters too. Eventually you start predicting them, you start watching it, you start just being God playing out as itself, witnessing what it means to be alive and learning how to be that. It's nothing more than that. It's nothing less, and it's a beautiful thing. I mean, you just dance the dance and the form, the formless, and everything in between, because you are on all layers, and it's so good. Here we all are. My heart is everywhere, and it is so in yours. I'm so grateful for this existence. I say these things because this is my true authentic self, and I Can't put that away. Purpose of these videos is for me to be me because I know the people that I connect with are out there. And until I meet them, I will be right here. We will all come together in this third way of not the true identity of a normal human being, not the true identity of spiritual ego, but also the person that is in between the two, creating a third path that leads us home. That's where we're getting to. So, I want to continue on, but let's be real, our attention spans aren't the greatest, so I'm going to stop. And I'm just going to tell you I love you. I'm so grateful to be here hanging out. I'm really excited of everything, of what's to come, of this life, of you guys, of me, of, gosh, having a microphone to even talk into. I'm so grateful for everything. I love you. Have the best night ever. Seriously, just do it. Have the best night ever. I'll see you soon.